Exposed, the surprising response of a single mom that transformed her billionaire boss forever. Clara had never been one to shy away from chaos. It was part and parcel of being a single mother to 6-year-old Lily. Yet, as the autumn breeze slipped through the tall Chicago buildings enveloping the advertising firm, she felt an unexpected shiver that had little to do with the temperature. Today was different. The morning rush was relentless. Phones blared, clients entered, and the office buzzed with an electric urgency. As Clara juggled welcoming clients and fielding phone calls, her heart raced at the thought of paying the next month's bills. That weight sat heavily on her chest.
In a fleeting moment of distraction, her curious eyes caught the glint of a keyhole on Victor Hastings' office drawer, a locked sanctuary she had always steered clear of. Behind the glass windows of his upper-floor office sat her billionaire boss, a man who seemed to float above the fray. Driven by an uncharacteristic impulse, she found herself knelt before the desk, fiddling with the key she'd spotted on his cluttered table.
Would getting caught mean losing her job, the one constant she'd fought to maintain? Doubt coiled like a snake in her gut, but curiosity pulled her, harder than any obligation.
The drawer sprang open, revealing a collection of photographs and letters, their worn edges whispering stories of heartbreak and loss. Clara's breath hitched as she skimmed through the papers. Amidst the smiles and joy were remnants of a family tragedy that crafted Victor into the man he was. A man who often wore a mask of detachment. An ache of empathy stirred within her. She knew what it was to bear pain in silence. Flashes of her own struggles surged. The moments spent in her modest apartment, where Lily's laughter filled the air, juxtaposed against her financial anxieties. With a newfound determination, Clara approached Victor, seeking connection amidst the office's polished facade. Their first conversations felt tentative, awkward even, as she spilled small bits of her life, her hopes for Lily's future, her daily hustle, the laughter they shared through the tumult. Victor, in return, began cracking open his wall of ice. Pieces fell away, revealing insecurities and grief that resonated with her struggles. But deep down, a nagging fear twisted inside. Had she overstepped? As Victor's vulnerabilities unfolded, she'd started to see him as more than just a boss, but as a man worthy of friendship. And yet this connection felt precarious. Could it all come crashing down? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as Clara's heart began to settle in its new rhythm of budding friendship, news of a threat loomed closer. A relentless competitor emerged, bodying a reckless ambition to unsettle Victor, exploiting Clara's growing bond with him as a potential weakness. Clara felt the perilous tug of loyalty against her primal need for job security. Each conversation with Victor flickered with secrecy. She wrestled with the choice that clawed at her mind. Protecting him could endanger her own fragile existence. Did she risk everything for a man who had once underestimated her? As the stakes rose, Clara straddled the space between stability and chaos, letting the world around her turn bleak, the walls closing in fast. And with every stay, every word not spoken, the weight of the secret she now held began to smother her. Would she be strong enough to step into the uncertain depths of her own desire to advocate for Victor, or fall back into the safety of her role? The door to her future loomed, but the path remained unlit, a haunting uncertainty lingering as she stared into the abyss of choices yet to come. Clara stood at the edge of her desk, heart pounding as the words danced around in her mind. The threat to Victor had heightened her instincts, an urge to protect him, to take charge of the unfolding chaos. It felt surreal, this crossover from employee to confidant, from isolated mother to key player in a game she had never intended to enter. But with every heartbeat, the urgency simmered, fanning the flames of her resolve. Control the narrative, she muttered under her breath, the mantra competing with the swirling doubts. Clara's instincts urged her to gather information, to scrutinize the company's inner workings with the precision of a hawk, knowing that the more knowledge she amassed, the better her chances of equipping Victor with the right strategies against their competitor. Despite her initial trepidation, she embraced her role as a guardian. Sitting at her cluttered desk, Clara made a list. Research competitors, assess their strategy. She drafted emails, initiated conversations with colleagues, and carefully listened to the whispers in the office. Each interaction unfolded layers of insight: marketing outlays, client tensions, rival campaigns. It was exhilarating. But nothing prepared her for the adrenaline rush when the idea struck: organize a meeting with the department heads to brainstorm. A way to showcase their collective talents while reinforcing Victor's leadership amidst the emerging crisis. Clara's mind spun with possibilities. Each voice around that table could shine light on a new angle, a new approach that would fortify their standing. It was the first step away from chaos and toward a concrete plan. A light shone brightly amid her storm. Yet with the excitement came a new wave of anxiety. She had been due to present only for her team before, not at an official meeting with multifaceted executives. What if she faltered under the pressure? The fear of inadequacy clawed at her, a chilling reminder of moments when she had felt like an outsider in the corporate sphere. Would Victor trust in her capability to lead this initiative? Taking a deep breath, she reminded herself why she was doing this. It wasn't just for Victor. It was for her, for Lily, for the self-worth that seemed like a distant memory. The trembling inside her transformed into determination. They needed an ally, someone who could bridge the gap between Victor's isolated realm and the fray of the competitive landscape. As Clara pulled the meeting details together, a flicker of confidence ignited. No longer just the single mother floundering for daily survival, she began to visualize the woman she could become, an expert in resourcefulness, someone who turned her chaotic life experiences into fortifying strategies. But the day of the meeting dawned with unexpected revelations. She could sense the shift in the air as the C-suite executives shuffled into the conference room, their worlds far removed from hers. Self-doubt surged, age-old instincts warning her of impending judgment. While she prepared to speak, the fear of failure tightened its grip once more, casting shadows over her newfound resolve. As she stepped forward, her voice caught in her throat. The stakes had never been higher. She had to navigate the delicate balance between supporting Victor and asserting her competence. At that moment, everything hung in the balance, teetering between triumph and disaster. The door swished open to the large meeting room, her heart pounding like a war drum, and the moment stretched out tantalizingly before her. She opened her mouth to speak, ready to bear her thoughts to an audience that felt impossibly vast. The moment of truth was upon her. How would she embrace it? In that heavy silence, overshadowed by unspoken expectations, something within Clara stirred. This was her time to step up. But would she soar or fall? Clara's breath caught in her throat as her pulse quickened, the conference room's atmosphere thick with anticipation. Her gaze flicked across the sea of expectant faces, sharp suits, and polished shoes that resonated with authority. This was her moment. Yet doubt clawed at the edges of her resolve. She inhaled deeply. The oxygen filling her lungs was a fleeting reminder of the conviction she had wrestled her way through to get here. "Remember your purpose," she whispered internally, clinging to that well-worn mantra. She was not only there for Victor but for herself, to reclaim her place in this world where she often felt like an intruder. Looking out over the senior executives, she felt a spark ignite within. What if her words held the power to change not just the trajectory of the company, but her own narrative? With newfound determination, Clara let the silence envelop her momentarily, allowing the anticipation to simmer among her colleagues. In those precious seconds, she surveyed the room, recognizing each person's strengths and weaknesses, the marketing head's innovative edges, the finance director's analytical prowess. She could harness the collective intelligence of this group, binding them under a common goal. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for gathering on such short notice." Her voice, steadier than she anticipated, broke through the hum of distracted chatter. "Today we face a pivotal challenge. Our competitor has gained momentum, and we need a cohesive strategy to respond effectively. Across the room, she noticed Victor's encouraging nod, a glimmer of approval flickering in his eye. That single gesture bolstered her confidence as she elaborated on the importance of leveraging this meeting as a platform for collaboration and brainstorming. It was crucial for them to come together as more than just teams but as a unified force dedicated to securing their market share. Clara guided the discussion with intention, posing questions that urged the group to explore their insights and perspectives. Ideas flowed, sparking a dynamic conversation that ignited her passion further. She listened intently, her ability to synthesize information sharpening with each contribution. "Let's break down our unique selling points," she suggested, her mind racing with the potential directions they could take. "What aligns with our brand, and how can we differentiate ourselves from our competitors?" As they delved deeper, proposals sprang forth, and her role began to shift. She was no longer merely guiding the discussion, but actively participating, injecting enthusiasm and confidence. With every idea exchanged, Clara transformed from an anxious employee into a backbone for the dialogue, her voice resonating with clarity. In one moment, she propounded a strategy that leveraged their long-standing client relationships while revisiting the marketing approach. "We can create tailored experiences for our clients, something that evokes loyalty, not just transactions." The revelation startled her. This was exactly the kind of incisive thinking that had eluded her before. Yet amid the intellectual thrill, doubt began to seep back in. Was she allowing her aspirations to flourish at the cost of her integrity? Was she truly capable of holding a position of leadership if Victor, her guiding light, were to falter? With hesitations bouncing in her mind, Clara rallied her focus. "We must prioritize not just our stakes, but also the integrity of our relationships," she clarified, addressing both her colleagues and herself. As discussions drew to a close, Clara sensed a shift. Her peers were looking at her differently, not just as Victor's assistant, but as a burgeoning leader who could compel change. Excitement welled within her, empowering the woman she was becoming. Just as Clara began to bask in this collective energy, a voice cut through the exhilaration. "Clara, while your insights are commendable, do you really think our clients will respond to such a personalized strategy?" The skepticism emanated from an older executive, a question that felt like an attempt to undermine her. Clara froze, fear slicing through her heart. All eyes were suddenly on her. Would she crumble or would she seize this pivotal moment? Her stomach twisted and uncertainty nipped at her resolve. Yet, deep within her, she felt the flicker of defiance ignite. This was not merely a question. It was a trial, a challenge that could solidify her newfound role or threaten her growing confidence. With a deep breath, she prepared to respond, understanding that how she chose to navigate this confrontation would either fortify her standing or unravel everything she had built. The real test had begun. What would she choose? Clara's palms clammy against the conference table. She quickly inhaled, the quiet hum of murmurs echoing in her ears as she focused intensely on the skeptical executive. His pointed gaze bore into her, drawing a line between her stable aspirations and the shaky foundation of doubt beneath her feet. She could feel the gravity of the moment pulling her into the depths of uncertainty. "Thank you for your question," she started, the words emerging slowly but with a clarity that surprised even her. Personalized strategies resonate deeply with clients today. They crave connection, not just transactions. By investing in their unique experiences, we foster loyalty and build relationships that drive revenue in the long run. The eyes around the table shifted slightly, curiosity shadowing the initial skepticism. But she could see the incredulity still lingering in the older executive's furrowed brow. "Isn't that a gamble?" he retorted, arms crossed defensively. "Markets shift constantly. How do you propose we make that a sustainable strategy?" The challenge worried at her confidence, but she couldn't retreat now. This was her moment to articulate not just her intellect, but the passion behind her position. It's a calculated risk. We've seen examples where brands that prioritize individual connection have outperformed those driven purely by sales metrics. I believe our existing client feedback shows they'd prefer deeper engagement over mere discount offers. As she spoke her truth, Clara was aware of the subtle changes in the room. Some executives leaned forward, intrigued, while others shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. The room was charged, each heartbeat synchronizing with the small victories of her expression. "But what guarantees success?" the executive pressed, unyielding. "No one can guarantee success, but we can gather data insights, constantly adjust our approach, and engage clients in a dialogue about their needs. Isn't that what innovative companies do?" Clara felt the weight of her own words, knowing that the risk of revealing her vulnerability lay in their power to unite or fracture her new facade. In that moment, she realized how vital it was for her to not merely respond, but to embody the leader she wished to become. "Success lies in our willingness to adapt," she concluded, casting her gaze across the room, meeting the eyes of her colleagues, daring them to join her. Victor's nod of support ignited a flame of resolve within her. This was her battle. She was reclaiming her narrative piece by piece. The energy in the room shifted again, the tension taking on a collaborative pulse rather than competitive fray. She sensed multiple minds beginning to work, seeing potential in her vision. Slowly, more voices joined the fray. Ideas blossomed as they pivoted to discussions of market research and case studies, the spark ignited by her conviction bringing the group closer together. Clara leaned into the discourse, savoring the thrill of shaping thoughts collectively. As the synergy crescendoed, she felt her doubts begin to dissipate. Yet, as the meeting wound down, self-doubt resurrected jagged questions. Would she truly back this strategy if it didn't pan out? Would the same executive whom she had just convinced still stand by her if their results fell short? Clara brushed the thoughts aside abruptly. This was a defining moment, her aspirations relying on more than a single conversation. They depended on action, on the pathways she'd carve in the coming days. As the meeting adjourned, the usual humdrum of post-discussion chatter ensued, the executives moving towards the exits with newly sparked conversations. But one lingering moment caught her, a gesture from Victor to meet with him after the meeting ended. His face revealed a level of respect she had never seen before. "Clara," he started, that glimmer of admiration coursing through his words, "what you did today was remarkable. Later on, I'd like to discuss opportunities for your growth moving forward." Her heart lurched, excitement and fear battling within her. Could this be the defining step in her ascent? But with a storm now brewing inside her head, she wondered, could she truly rise, or would she falter under the same weight that had haunted her before? The real question lay ahead. What darkness awaited in the pursuit of her potential? Clara's heart raced as she shuffled her papers, grasping the moment between aspiration and apprehension. Victor's words lingered, a promise of mentorship, but with it came an unspoken challenge. Was she truly capable of seizing her potential? As she stepped out of the conference room, the fluorescent lights overhead felt like spotlights bearing down on her. In the days that followed, Clara became a whirlwind of energy and newfound purpose. Each morning felt like a fresh canvas. She plotted strategies, wrapped her mind around analytics, and pushed through the fatigue brought on by late-night research marathons. But as the hours ticked by, she was haunted by the shadow of doubt, echoing Victor's earlier question about success guarantees. In this professional pursuit, how could she ensure her sustainable strategy didn't falter? The following week, Victor invited her to his office. Sitting in front of his sleek desk, surrounded by accolades and a view of the city skyline, Clara took a deep breath, ready to face whatever lay ahead. "Clara, your presentation at the meeting was a breakthrough," he began, the admiration in his voice tangible. "But there's more to this than a single win. How committed are you to building this vision into reality?" She hesitated, weighing the depth of her ambitions against her fears. I'm all in," she asserted, the conviction solidifying as she spoke. "I believe in a client-centered approach, but I also realize I have to develop the skills to make that vision executable." Victor leaned back, considering her answer. Execution is where many falter. It requires grit, adaptability, and a willingness to fail. Tell me, what do you believe is your biggest obstacle moving forward? The question pierced her, drawing her into a moment of introspection. "I've often felt that my lack of experience holds me back. I see established leaders with years of insight, and I wonder if I can ever match that." He nodded knowingly. Experience is one part of the equation, but innovative thinking, a fresh perspective, can be just as valuable. What you did last week was show them that new ideas, driven by personal connections, can thrive in this environment. You've opened doors for both yourself and this company. Clara could hardly process this. Her mind buzzed with the implications. Could it be that her naivety was a strength rather than a weakness? A journey begins with a single step, Victor continued. You'll need to seek feedback aggressively, embrace criticism, and most importantly, foster relationships. Understand that you're in a constant dance with uncertainty, and the ability to adapt will be your strongest asset. His words echoed in her mind like a mantra. She felt the pressure of the expectations ahead, but with it came a spark of determination. I want to build a community of feedback. I'd like to initiate regular check-ins with clients and our team to guide our strategy and pivot when necessary. Victor's eyebrow raised in appreciation. Now we're talking. Design experiments, test them, learn from the outcomes, and iterate. Embrace a culture where failures are stepping stones, not endpoints. As they mapped out her first steps, a surge of exhilaration electrified her spirit. Ideas poured from her like waterfalls. She envisioned brainstorming sessions, workshops, interactive surveys to capture client voices, strategies that would bind their relationships in ways that rippled through the company's structure. But beneath that thrill lay a swirling haze of anxiety. Would her ideas resonate? What if her initiatives were met with cynicism? As she stood to leave, her resolve wavered momentarily. Clara had embarked on a path of bold experimentation, yet the fear of rejection lurked ominously. "Clara," Victor called as she paused at the door. "This is your moment. Don't let self-doubt undermine your future." His words sparked an awareness deep within her. She needed to confront her uncertainties, to face them head-on. But could she navigate this uncharted territory without losing herself to the very fears she sought to overcome? As she walked away, a flicker of resolve replaced the doubt. The stage was set for her resurgence, but the real challenge awaited her. Would she courageously stride forward, or would the shadows of her insecurities return to obscure her path? Clara inhaled deeply, ready to unleash her newfound vision, yet wary of the invisible barriers yet to come. How would she define success on her own terms, navigating the intersection of risk and reward? The tension pulsed, a thread tightly wound around her aspirations, leaving her questioning. What would she discover in the crucible of her ambition? Clara spent the next few days reeling from the exhilaration and anxiety that accompanied her newfound purpose. Each minute of the workday felt loaded with potential. Untapped ideas danced around her mind like fireflies, but the darker specter of self-doubt loomed increasingly large. She embraced her role as a facilitator, calling for team meetings to dissect client feedback. She listened intently, taking notes on every comment that floated through the air, each suggestion resonating in her thoughts like valuable currency. Still, a nagging worry tugged at her. Would these discussions lead to the changes she envisioned, or would they expose her deficiencies? As Clara prepared for the first scheduled feedback session, her hands trembled slightly over the laptop keyboard. She envisioned herself in front of the team, a group of seasoned professionals, far more experienced than she, and couldn't help but feel small beneath their scrutiny. However, she reminded herself of Victor's words. Innovative thinking, a fresh perspective, can be just as valuable. Finally, the day arrived. Clara stood at the front of the room, palms pressed against the cool surface of the conference table, her pulse racing. She noticed the skeptical glances shared among the participants, just momentary lapses of confidence in their leader. She swallowed her unease and began, "Thank you all for being here. Today we're going to explore how we can better serve our clients by leveraging your insights." As she led the discussion, Clara felt a shift inside her. The more she engaged with the team, the more willing they appeared to be to offer constructive criticism. One remark, however, pierced through her newfound composure. "Clara, this all sounds great, but how do we know your suggestions are based on solid evidence? We are accustomed to strategies backed by years of experience, not just fresh ideas." An uncomfortable silence enveloped the room. Clara's breath caught in her chest. Their skepticism simmered beneath the surface, ready to boil over into cynicism. She paused, staring at her notes, but instinct kicked in. The truth bubbled up from her core. I may not have the years of experience you possess, but I do have a fresh perspective. And while I can't guarantee every idea will succeed, I'm committed to learning from each initiative. That's how we'll grow. For a brief moment, she felt the weight of their gazes ease. Some nodded in consideration rather than derision. Clara took a breath and pressed on, discussing mechanisms to integrate client feedback into their strategies, including interactive surveys and cross-functional workshops. Each new idea ignited tiny sparks of interest from her teammates, and she felt a sliver of optimism flicker alive inside her. After the meeting, Victor pulled her aside. You handled that well, Clara. Acknowledging your limitations while standing firm on your vision was crucial. Embrace that blend going forward. His words fortified her, and she began sketching action plans that would involve building accountability into her initiatives. The responses she received from team members sharpened her understanding, like honing a blade. With every proposed strategy, she hoped to establish a more responsive company culture, one that didn't shy away from risk but approached it with a defined purpose. Yet the underlying dread persisted. Even as she initiated changes, what would happen if these new ideas failed? The tension shivered in the air as she pondered how to navigate potential backlash and skepticism from those who had resisted change for so long. Determined to prove herself, she gathered the team again, pondering relatable success stories to share. Her determination turned inward. She needed to quell the anxiety that whispered words of failure. What if this time she could articulate a vision that harmonized their established methods with her innovative tactics? As the days rolled on, Clara fostered connections with both clients and teammates. Yet behind every conversation lay the gnawing worry. Was she winning them over or merely masking her inadequacies? Each failure faced drug her deeper into introspection, intertwining duty with her self-worth. A pivotal decision lay ahead. Would she choose to persist in her uncertain path, risking criticism and defeat by betting on her voice? The stakes had never felt higher. Her hand hovered over her email, breathing life into the next round of feedback requests that churned like butterflies in her stomach. When Victor approached her with plans for the next quarterly pitch, a sense of urgency surged within. Clara, I believe in your strategies, but I need to see you own this. Your time has come to present to the board. Could she deliver? The pivot point approached, steering her toward a daunting confrontation with not just the board, but her very fears. Would this opportunity reinforce her resilience or unravel the fabric she had so painstakingly woven around her vision? How would she face the scrutiny of seasoned professionals, knowing everything was on the line? As she prepared herself for the imminent challenge, doubts crisscrossed her mind, but resolve pushed back. This moment could redefine her trajectory. The question was no longer whether she would falter, but whether she would soar. Would she seize the moment, or let it slip through her fingers? Clara's thoughts spiraled, a cacophony of doubts mingling with the anticipation coursing through her veins. The looming presentation felt less like a mere meeting and more like a high-stakes gamble with her future. She had spent countless hours refining her slides, distilling her points into clear, actionable insights. Yet, each time she rehearsed, the voices of uncertainty clawed at her mind. What if they responded with derision? What if the board's skepticism paralyzed her plans even further? Amidst this turmoil, one unshakable truth surfaced. She had embarked on a journey of personal and professional growth that she needed to embrace with unwavering determination. Clara found herself pausing, revisiting her motivations for spearheading this project. It wasn't just about proving her worth. It was about reshaping how the company approached its clients and priorities. In the days leading up to the presentation, Clara leaned into the vulnerabilities that accompanied her role. She began confiding in Victor about her apprehensions, his calmness a balm to her frayed nerves. Your originality is an asset. Remember that? He encouraged one afternoon as they pored over her slides. You've gathered valuable insights and feedback that should resonate with them. They need a fresh approach. Though his words provided momentary relief, Clara wrestled with how to genuinely project that confidence during the pitch. She developed a strategy to connect her ideas directly to the company's mission, thinking how the blend of fresh strategies and traditional approaches could fuel longevity and success. Each night, she envisioned the board's reactions, trying to channel their potential, often different perspectives. The morning of the presentation, the sun peeked through the blinds, illuminating her cluttered workspace with renewed clarity. In a final fit of inspiration, Clara crafted an additional slide outlining the possible risks and her calculated measures to mitigate them. Being forthcoming about her awareness of potential pushback showed not just humility, but also a provocative deftness on her part that they could respect. Armed with her materials, Clara stepped into the boardroom and felt the air hissing with tension. The long, polished table loomed ahead, each seat occupied by leaders whose eyes scrutinized every move she made. As Clara began, her voice composed despite the nerves that ricocheted in her chest. She opened not with a presentation, but with a story that humanized the data, a client success experience that illustrated the void in their current practices. She hoped this would connect her audience to the need for change in a palpable way. Her strategy worked. The room's energy began to shift as they shared glances of interest. As she navigated through her slides, her passion suffused the atmosphere, becoming an unspoken bridge between her experiences and the board's previous successes. Clara's meticulous attention to potential objections allowed her to address concerns before they fully formed. For the first time, she truly felt like a leader. But just as she dared to let her guard down, a board member interrupted with an unusually pointed question. "Clara, you propose radical changes. How can you assure us that your untested ideas will thrive?" The room fell silent as eyes turned to her, the tension palpable. Taken aback, Clara realized this moment could solidify her credibility or fracture it entirely. She took a deep breath, the weight of her intentions supporting her response. "Every significant change carries inherent risks, and I won't shy away from that reality. However, I do have data that illustrates the potential for success. Historical shifts in client satisfaction metrics paired with adjusted engagement strategies. It demonstrates that adaptation is necessary to thrive, not just survive." As she spoke, Clara felt her previous insecurities begin to slip away. What she had always perceived as inadequacies had transformed into her platform. The sincerity in her conviction accrued weight, and the board began to respond, not just with skepticism, but with thoughtful engagement. The tension was high as she concluded her presentation, inviting questions and discussions. The board members' expressions reflected deep contemplation rather than static judgment, and her heart soared. For the first time, she felt the taste of true professional possibility, a tangible connection stemming from vulnerability and understanding. But just as she exhaled a sigh of optimism, objective evaluations followed. "How will you handle the resistance from the team?" another member pressed, tilting the conversation toward Clara's internal battle that still loomed large. The question unleashed a torrent of thoughts, growing pains, adaptability, cultural shifts, elements of her journey still hovering ominously. Would she remain steadfast as she navigated this uncharted territory post-presentation, or would lingering fears stymie her intentions? The stakes had shifted. Now more than ever, she had to prove not only to the board, but also to herself, that she could lead them through this evolution. As she prepared for the anticipated probing of her plans, Clara steadied herself, ready to face not just the board's scrutiny, but the deeper confrontation with her own resolve. Would this be the moment she fully embraced her capabilities, or would it become yet another chapter of missed opportunities? Clara could feel the weight of choices pressing down, and this was only the beginning. Clara's heart raced as the boardroom's atmosphere shifted around her, a fragile balance between anticipation and doubt lingering in the air. Each member's gaze weighed heavily on her, a spotlight illuminating the chasm of uncertainty she now had to cross. This was no longer just about presenting her ideas. It had evolved into a crucible of her professional identity, a chance to confront the very doubts she often shielded within. Managing to reclaim her composure, Clara articulated a response to the question about team resistance. Adaptation isn't merely dependent on new strategies. It requires a cultural shift in the way our team collaborates. I am committed to facilitating open dialogues, ensuring everyone's concerns are heard and valued. As she spoke, she realized that her perspective about resistance transformed. It wasn't a barrier. It was an opportunity for growth, a chance to co-create a vision rather than impose one. Eyes flicked toward each other as murmurs of agreement rippled through the board, and for the first time, Clara considered herself a part of this collective transformation. With every answer, she found herself stepping forward, asserting the agency that had previously felt elusive. After the presentation, she gathered her materials, her hands still trembling from the intensity of the dialogue, but her spirit ignited. Clara exited the boardroom, the electrifying buzz of possibility swirling around her. Yet, as she walked through the corridors of her company, whispers of doubt crept back in. Could she sustain this newfound authority? Would she truly cultivate a culture of collaboration among her peers? As the days unfolded, Clara became resolute in tackling these internal conflicts. She initiated casual one-on-ones with her colleagues, inviting their input on her proposals. Weaving their perspectives into her framework was no longer just a task. It became an empowering exercise that fortified her position and instilled a sense of shared ownership in the vision she was crafting. To her surprise, she found herself invigorated by the conversations that blossomed from these meetings. However, not everyone responded positively to her approach. One colleague, Darren, a veteran resistant to change, twisted her efforts into a battleground rather than a collaborative space. At a team meeting, he belittled her suggestions, scoffing at the idea of modernizing established processes. This attack pulled the wind from Clara's sails. Dread bloomed at the realization that resistance wouldn't just surface from the board, but from within her network. Despite this setback, Clara felt determination solidifying within her. This wasn't just about her ideas anymore. It was personal. She was no longer a newcomer attempting to prove herself. She had stakes in her work. Her insights had started cultivating a budding confidence, and the time would come where she would confront Darren directly. Each passing day saw her sharpening her resolve, preparing for what she sensed would be an inevitable clash. Clara reassured herself that growth didn't happen without conflict. It required discomfort and confrontation. The clash with Darren would be pivotal, not just in terms of ideas, but in asserting her role and beyond the confines of professionalism, into the realm of her own authenticity. As the next team meeting loomed, Clara wrestled with the anticipation swirling within her. Would she stand her ground firmly, transformed by every challenge thus far? Or would she retreat into the cocoon of doubt that had so often enveloped her? Instinctively, Clara felt electricity course through her veins, propelling her toward the confrontation she long avoided. But as she geared up for the inevitable showdown, a new thought slipped into her mind, uninvited but insistent. What if this conflict unraveled not just Darren's resistance but revealed facets of her own identity that remained dormant? The tension hung around her, a coiled spring ready to release, but only if she dared to push. Clara entered the meeting room, her breath steadying with each step. The tension in the air felt palpable, an unspoken challenge hovering between her and Darren, whose gaze remained fixed ahead, a fortress of skepticism. As the team gathered, she strategically positioned herself at the front, a subtle assertion of her intent to lead the discourse. Presenting her latest proposal, Clara emphasized the importance of fostering a culture that celebrated adaptability. She was painfully aware of the stakes. There were no half measures anymore. Her voice had to ring clearly through the chorus of doubt. Despite the nervous flutter in her stomach, she felt her words fuel a confidence that had eluded her in previous weeks. After outlining her strategy, she opened the floor for discussion, recognizing that this was not merely a chance to share ideas, but a crucial moment to invite dissent. It didn't take long for Darren to spring into action. Clara, with all due respect, these ideas sound great on paper, but have you considered the operational realities? Our team isn't equipped for sweeping changes, he interrupted, his tone laced with mockery, a javelin of resistance aimed directly at her core. The room went silent, all eyes shifting away from Clara. Defensiveness surged within her, a visceral desire to retreat, but then she remembered the first moments in the boardroom, how she had transformed her view of resistance into a catalyst for growth. If Darren viewed her initiatives as an imposition rather than an invitation, perhaps her response could turn the tide. "Thank you for your perspective, Darren," she said, her voice calm yet assertive, careful not to project anger. "I appreciate the concerns, but might I suggest that we view our current status as an opportunity rather than a limitation?
Let's discuss how we can reframe our resource allocation and find common ground to ensure our team feels supported during such changes.
The shift in her tone caught the attention of some colleagues who nodded in agreement. Clara could sense the energy in the room subtly changing. Rather than a debate, she steered this toward a strategy session, inviting others to build on her ideas. This was no longer just Clara against Darren. It was an entire team rethinking possibilities.
Why should we be the only business in our sector to cling to the old ways? Clara pressed, and with each word, her confidence expanded. Let's stop seeing adaptability as a logistical nightmare and start viewing it as a way to enhance our creative potential. Darren floundered as he prepared to retort, but Clara was no longer deterred. She had prepared for this moment, mentally rehearsing her responses. She had reframed his objections into points of dialogue. It was revolutionary for her to realize that the power she sought was rooted not in defeating him, but in dialogue, in collaboration, even amidst conflict. After what felt like an eternity, Darren relented, albeit begrudgingly. Maybe we can consider a phased approach, he conceded, his body language taut. The tension in his shoulders spoke volumes, but Clara had succeeded in diverting the conversation from confrontation to collaboration. As the meeting wrapped up, Clara felt an elation that was as foreign as it was exhilarating. She had navigated a minefield, and instead of retreating, she had claimed her space architecturally within a system that had once made her feel small. Her colleagues were engaged, and for the first time, she sensed a subtle shift in their perspectives. Not just about her, but about change itself. Later in her office, the adrenaline from the meeting coursed through her. Clara stared at her reflection in the window, empowering visions dancing through her mind. Her journey was far from over. A new layer of complexity now unfurled before her. The confrontation had opened the door, but what would it reveal about her leadership style? What truths lay dormant, hidden beneath the layers of doubt and resistance she had so carefully navigated? Clara's heart pounded, not in fear, but in anticipation. The next step would demand even more from her. As she prepared her notes for the individual meetings ahead, thoughts raced. The clash had not only reshaped their dynamic, but unveiled new paths for her personal and professional identity. What would she discover about herself as she leaned further into her role and faced uncharted territories of vulnerability and strength? The answers awaited, just beyond the horizon of her self-doubt. Clara stood on the threshold of transformation, confidence coursing through her as she prepared for the next phase of her progressive journey. The battle with Darren had shifted her perspective. The confrontation had not only marked a pivotal moment in her professional role, but unveiled hidden depths of resilience within herself. Each encounter became a stepping stone toward the leader she aspired to be. She no longer resonated with the label of just an employee, but rather, she embodied the essence of a change-maker equipped with fresh vision. With renewed determination, Clara initiated individual meetings with her colleagues. She invited open discussions, encouraging empowerment, and each interaction radiated a sense of purpose. Yet, there remained an underlying fear. Was she capable of sustaining the momentum she had built without faltering again? Shaking off lingering anxiety, she opened dialogues centered around collaborative efforts to secure engaging strategies for their clients. With every insight shared, Clara felt herself evolving, shedding the confines of self-doubt that once defined her outlook. Days turned into weeks, and as the team worked on implementing feedback from the prior meetings, Clara's role morphed. She transitioned from a timid contributor to the architect of their newfound cohesion. Their company culture began to shift toward one emphasizing adaptability and engagement, principles she had courageously advocated for. The relentless pace of progress exhilarated her as she witnessed her colleagues fueling ideas into strategic plans that catalyzed growth. Concrete results soon followed. Client response rates soared, and with each success came validation of her vision. As Clara prepared for the next board meeting, she felt a commanding sense of preparedness that she had never experienced before. No longer plagued by thoughts of inadequacy, she visualized presenting not merely as a subordinate but as an equal, a colleague among seasoned professionals. The day arrived, and Clara stood in the boardroom, anticipation igniting her spirit.
She addressed the room, enthusiasm and assurance underlining every word. Her presentation highlighted the success stemming from her team's collaboration, along with proposed strategies that would extend their momentum. Today is about celebrating not just our victories, but the culture we've begun to foster, one that embraces innovation through collective intelligence, Clara asserted confidently. The board's nods of engagement shone brightly in her periphery as she articulated her plans for fostering further empowerment across teams. Each slide represented milestones, each statistic resonated with growth, and when it came time for questions, the board's dialogue was collaborative. Members acknowledged her insights, illuminating a path that intertwined knowledge gathered from her experiences with seasoned wisdom present in the room. At the meeting's conclusion, Victor shared heartfelt applause, expressing his admiration. "Clara, you've moved us beyond proving points to nurturing relationships. You've displayed unparalleled growth and have solidified your place as a leader in this organization." The exclamation of respect washed over Clara like a wave, one that transformed doubt into a sense of rightful belonging. As the initial exhilaration subsided, she relished in the profound realization. She had not only conquered internal barriers but had demonstrated the value of innovative thinking and her innate ability to lead. Clara had come full circle, standing not only for her potential but cementing her influence within a corporate framework that had once felt insurmountable. In the days that followed, the evolution did not cease. Clara took it upon herself to implement a feedback culture that continued to prioritize client engagement, establishing low-risk experimentation methodologies encouraged even among her colleagues. She pioneered interactive workshops, welcoming fresh ideas even in failure, reinforcing the belief that true growth comes from authentic collaboration. Clara stood before the reflective surface of the skyline, her journey illuminated by both experience and acknowledgement. Each challenge had provided her with an opportunity to cultivate her voice, her identity within this corporate realm. She felt a sense of solid confidence rooted in competence. The initiatives born from her vision breathed life back into the company while empowering her colleagues. Clara's transformation wasn't just a personal triumph. It was an aggressive assertion of leadership that held the promise of setting the stage for future innovations. She had not only reshaped her own narrative, but had sparked a wave of change that resonated through the entire organization. Embracing her unique identity and promoting collaborative efforts reshaped a stagnant culture into one of adaptability and resilience. In the end, Clara had chosen to become the catalyst for growth instead of merely a player in the game. This was the moment she had worked towards. Now is the time for you to join this incredible journey of personal transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire growth. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Every click matters. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. I want to hear your thoughts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You never know who could benefit from a story of transformation. Don't wait even one more second. Your engagement makes a difference.